He was supposed to be England's greatest king, a warrior, a hero, a legend, but fate denied him the crown. This is the story of Edward of Woodstock, the Black Prince, the greatest king that never was. In the 14th century, during the brutal 100 Years' War, one man captured the imagination of Europe. Edward of Woodstock, heir to the English throne, was everything a medieval prince should be: bold in battle, loyal to his people, and feared by his enemies. Yet despite his victories and glory, he died before ever becoming king. Today we'll explore the rise, triumphs, and tragic end of the Black Prince. Edward was born in 1330, the eldest son of King Edward III. From the moment of his birth, he was groomed to inherit the crown. As a boy, he was described as handsome, intelligent, and full of energy. He wasn't just a prince, he was England's future, and from the time he could walk, he was learning the skills to match. At age 5, he began riding a horse. By 8, he was hunting wild boar. By 12, he was practicing archery for hours every day. But the boy's life wasn't all jousting and falconry, it was also duty. Edward was taught the intricacies of governance, the laws of his realm, and how to command an army. After all, England was in the middle of a war with France, a conflict that would become known as the 100 Years' War, and when Edward was just 16 years old, he got his first real taste of battle. In 1346, King Edward III assembled a massive force to invade northern France. The English were outnumbered, but they had one thing the French didn't: longbows. These weapons were so deadly that even knights were wary of them, and that day they proved unstoppable. At the Battle of Edward rode into battle with his father. He fought bravely, perhaps a little too eagerly. The young prince was nearly killed after lunging too far ahead of his troops, but he survived, and so did his men. For the English crushed the French that day, and Edward's reputation as a warrior prince was born. He may have been just 16, but he already showed the stuff of legends. When news of reached England, the young prince was hailed as a hero. People saw him as a symbol of England's strength, a living embodiment of the nation's power. His victory had cemented his place in English hearts and set the stage for even greater triumphs. The next decade saw Edward playing a pivotal role in the war. He participated in numerous battles, each of which brought him closer to the mantle of leadership. As England's heir, he learned the art of strategy, logistics, and most importantly, inspiring troops to victory. Under his father's watchful eye, he honed his skills, turning every campaign into a masterclass in medieval warfare. By 1355, Edward was considered the best military strategist in England, ready to lead his own armies into battle, and in 1356, he got his chance at the Battle of Poitiers. It was a clash that would echo through history, not just because of its brutality, but because of the one man who shone above the rest, the Black Prince. What happened at Poitiers was nothing short of spectacular. Edward faced off against the French King John the Good. Despite the rain, the English, with Edward leading the charge, charged forward. The French were caught off guard. Their formations broke apart, leaving them vulnerable. Edward seized the moment. With a burst of speed and skill, he and his knights tore through the enemy ranks. It was a display of such ferocity and precision that within hours, King John was captured. The battlefield erupted in cheers as word spread. The French king was taken prisoner. It was a victory that made Edward a legend in his own right, proving he didn't need the title of king to be a conqueror. But while his military victories brought him fame and glory, it was on the battlefield that the darkness surrounding the Black Prince truly emerged. You see, medieval warfare wasn't just about strategy and skill, it was also about complete and utter destruction. After the battle, Edward oversaw the redistribution of land, seizing control of several key regions in France. He also initiated a series of brutal campaigns, targeting French towns that resisted English rule. Castles were stormed, villages were burnt, and entire cities were laid to waste. In the name of conquest and control, the Black Prince left a trail of misery and death in his wake. Even his greatest supporters couldn't ignore the shadows of his deeds. Throughout his military campaigns, Edward earned a fearsome reputation among his enemies. They called him the Black Prince, a moniker that stuck and evolved into one of the most haunting titles in medieval history. Historians debate the exact origin of the name, but most agree it was a combination of his armor, his accomplishments, and his ruthlessness that earned him this dark distinction. The truth was that Edward, despite being heralded as a great warrior, was a complex figure whose legacy was as multifaceted as his personality. Back in England, the Black Prince's conquests were celebrated with feasts, pageants, and songs. People saw him as a symbol of national pride and strength, a living testament to the power of the English crown. His image was plastered on coins, tapestries, and even church windows. He was an icon, a warrior prince who had captured the hearts and minds of his people. But Edward's popularity wasn't limited to England. Across Europe, tales of his bravery and skill circulated among the nobility. Lords and ladies swooned over his daring feats, comparing him to legendary heroes from ancient tales. It seemed Edward was destined for greatness. His victories in battle, his charm and charisma, his very name made him a legend in his own time. Yet even in the midst of all this adulation, a darker truth lurked beneath the surface. The Black Prince, for all his glory, was haunted by a secret pain. From his early 30s, his health began to deteriorate. No one knows for sure what caused this sudden decline. Some historians believe it was a recurrence of a childhood illness. Others blame the brutal conditions of medieval warfare. Whatever the cause, Edward's strength ebbed away, turning the invincible Black Prince into a shadow of his former self. As his body weakened, so did his ability to lead. Battles that once seemed effortless became taxing. Campaigns that were once months long became weeks, and the shadow of mortality loomed over the once invincible warrior. The Black Prince who had conquered France and captivated England was now facing his greatest challenge yet. A battle against the one enemy he couldn't defeat, time. Despite his failing health, Edward refused to step down. He clung to the saddle, literally and figuratively, determined to hold on to power and prestige until the very end. But the reality was that the Black Prince's grip on both his kingdom and his life was slipping away. Edward's final years were a stark contrast to his glorious victories. As his illness took hold, his responsibilities became too great, his pain too unbearable. Forced to relinquish many of his duties, he watched as England's affairs were managed by regents and advisors, a far cry from the days when he led armies to victory. In 1367, Edward's health forced him to return to England, ending his military career and his hopes of a wider conquest. Now confined to his chambers, the Black Prince turned to writing, pouring his thoughts and regrets onto paper, creating a diary that would later give historians insight into the mind of a dying legend. Throughout his illness, Edward remained defiant, refusing to let the disease define his legacy. Yet, even as he grappled with his fading health, the shadow of his mortality looming over him, Edward, the Black Prince, never gave up. Despite the pain, the limitations and the despair, he held on to his sense of purpose, his duty to his kingdom and his people. Even in his darkest moments, the spirit of the warrior prince shone through. He remained a beacon of strength, determination and resilience until the very end. Edward, the Black Prince, died on June 8, 1376, at the age of 45. His passing was not just a loss for the Plantagenet dynasty, but a tragedy for all of England. The nation that had celebrated his victories now mourned the loss of its hero. His death left a void in the hearts of his people, a void that no amount of royal lineage could fill. After his death, his young son, Richard II, ascended to the throne, but Richard lacked his father's strength and charisma. His reign was marked by instability and rebellion, leaving many to wonder what might have been if the Black Prince had lived. If Edward had lived, would England have been stronger, more united? Would history have taken a different path? These questions echoed through the halls of time, unanswered. The Black Prince's legacy is a complex tapestry woven with threads of glory, ruthlessness, and tragedy. He was a warrior who inspired awe and fear, a leader who commanded respect and loyalty, and a man whose health failed him at the peak of his powers. His story is a reminder that even the brightest stars can burn out, leaving behind a legacy that is both brilliant and haunting. He was Edward of Woodstock, the Black Prince, the greatest king that never was. So, I'll ask you, what do you think? Would the Black Prince have changed the fate of England if he had lived to be king? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And remember, history is filled with untold stories waiting to be discovered. Keep watching to uncover more of the past. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this.